leave their birthland to go elsewhere. So they're the one who came. Beside, our kings fought them with what they had. Of course, they had an artillery of weapons. They had their spears, they had their swords, they had their daggers, they had their hatchet, they had their different kind of knives. But what goes were the kind of weapons against firearms, against cannons. So many of our kings were bound to lose. So many of our kings lost the war, and their children rounded up and shipped into slavery, snatched, kidnapped, stolen. Now, in some areas where they couldn't military defeat our kings, although they didn't have firearms and cannons like they were, we had some badass empires in Africa. We had the Wassoulou Empire and the Samori Ture and the Zulu Empire under Emperor Shaka of Amazulu. There, I would say in the case of Shaka Zulu, I don't know if they already have a movie about Samori Ture, you could clearly see there that they couldn't touch the Zulu. They were impressed by the Zulu army. So what did they do in those cases where they couldn't be beaten military? They used their best weapon against mankind, the divide and conquer. So for those who can find the Shaka Zulu series, I invite you to check out that series. Toward the end, when King Shaka finally realized that he got played, he asked the colonel of the expedition, whom he thought was his friend, he even gave him an African name, right? He asked him, how do you catch a monkey? And the guy told him how they catch monkeys. He told him, we present something shiny in front of him. We tie it to a cord and so on and so on. So that's how they conquered our strongest empire. So in the case of Emperor Shaka, you could see in the movie that shortly after the arrival of the British, Shaka half-brothers attempted to his life. They don't say in the movie that they have anything to do with it, but we know that this is how they work. So they went around the king's circle, his immediate advisors, his mbutelezis, right? So they went around his brothers, and as you know, our kings, our fathers had many, many wives. And a lot of them, you know, once they were king, they didn't want to obey, you know, to observe the rule on polygamy in order to have a successful polygamous home. Everybody got their place. The first wife has to agree to that. And then she'll be the one to select the second wife. And also some of our kings, they would just marry anybody. So this is how some Jezebel were able to sneaking into royal homes and raise the children into division. So yeah, they found King Shaka's brothers who attempted his life shortly after they arrived. So it's up to you to kind of connect the two and two, because Africans are very spiritual people, you know, and they fear the divine, and they know how their kings are crowned, right? Our kings are crowned by the divine and the dead ancestors. So it's not a small thing. It's not a matter of who's the bulliest, who's the strongest. It's a power which comes from God. So when they start rebelling about what they hold dear, the European, that's how they embolden people against us. They embolden our brothers, our sisters to come after us, because they know it takes a king to kill a king, right? They know that rule about us. They know we are royals. That's why they will always recruit one of us for them to stand their hands with bloods of kings, because they know the repercussion that comes from killing our royalties. So in the case of King Shaka, it was the divide and conquer. And in the case of Samori Ture, it was the same thing. They found some of his brothers and they approached them with promises of power and protection from them. So people who could never have the chance to sit on that throne were offered that opportunity. And it was our downfall. It is still our downfall. So anyway, those of you who found yourself here because a puppet, not a king, and I will explain to you the big difference, because a puppet, that place gave them access to whatever they wanted in exchange of the throne. It's a big difference. A puppet is not a divinely crowned king. The custodian of the crown has a covenant with God. So if you kill him and put a puppet, he doesn't have the divine authority kings have. So even if you rounded up their people through the puppet's authority, you're still kidnapping human beings. Their original king's covenant is on them. That's why no matter what they put us through, they couldn't exterminate us, because our crowns come from God. Our crowns come from the divine. Now let me tell you more about our crowns. All our kingdoms emerged from the Nile Valley. Okay? All our kingdoms. You have to understand why we went through what we went through. When there's a big crime, it's because there's a big cover-up somewhere. We are of the lineage of the sacred priesthood of God. We are the true tribe of Judah. But you will never know, because we are today's Bantu. But who are the Bantus? We came from a place that is currently called Palestina, that area. And then we journeyed into Egypt and spent 5 centuries in Egypt. And then after the so many invasions, we were pushed out, right? We were pushed out of where God crowned us, where God gave us the power. And then we started the Bantu migration. We became the Bantus, and all the Bantus land will tell you that their kingdom emerged from the Nile Valley. We are God's people. Everything, the entire creation is of God. No human being belongs to another human being. Even the children we gave birth to are God's children. We are only custodian of them. And during that process, the kings go into a covenant with God. God tells them how they need to lead their people, what their people need to do, and so on and so on. And in exchange, our kings ask what they want in return. And all I can tell you is, like, our kingdoms are divinely abundant, divinely protected. We are creatures that only God must have taken the time to create. We are divinely beautiful and handsome. We are smart. We have everything. We the full package. We the firstborn, right? We are the it. African men and women. You are the Lamborghini of men and women. And that's not even a brag, because I'm your sister, your niece, your, I don't know, your daughter. No, it's because this is who we are. And you must know it. Don't believe it, know it. So basically, when they did that and stole our people from our land, not because they snatch you from us and throw you in the belly of a sheep, that the covenant got canceled. A covenant with God doesn't get canceled because they put a puppet of your bloodline. All right? So they felt the need to usurp our identity. We are the royal lineage of priesthood. We are the people God gave the secret of humanity. We. Okay? So transaction took place, and all of the sudden, the Bantu are placed on on the west side of Africa. That's where we originated from. And they placed the Jews in Egypt. They first gave them credit for the building of the pyramids. And then after that, when archaeological evidence started finding that there's no trace of these people even being here before, oh, now the same people who organized that crime are now funding so-called archaeologists, so-called Egyptologists. You know, they give themselves that right to tell us who we are, to tell our history. It's just a joke.